morning. Now, before I start, I want to raise something to all of you. Now, if you were given the option to vote for what we had for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner every day, I would assume the majority of you would, so that we can eat the things that we want the most, rather than what we don't want. Well, the same goes for voting in our presidential election. If we have the opportunity to change our nation and steer it in the direction we want it to go, then why wouldn't we? Now, as an 18-year-old who is now eligible to vote, I'm very excited to finally be able to do my civic duty and to vote in our upcoming election. Now, if there are three things that I want you guys to take out of my speech today, they are to understand the lack of voting that we have had in our nation over the last few years compared to other countries. I want you to understand that voting is a privilege and it is not a right. And lastly, I want you guys to understand all of the positive effects that voting has on us as a nation. Now, voting participation in America compared to other countries has been very poor. An experiment conducted by Drew DeSilver, a graduate of Columbia University and a writer for PewResource.org, which is a website that has articles based on U.S. politics, did an experiment showing that the U.S., which is right here among other developed countries, ranks 31st out of 35 countries in voter participation. And just so you can see more data on it, the USA, out of 84.3 people that are registered to vote, only 53.6% of those people did. And now, for how much we've been voting over the years, just to show, around about 81% to 70% used to be the average back in the day, and then in the mid-1900s, around 62%. But nowadays, elections have been coming anywhere from 49% into the low 50s, which is around an average of about 50% of our voting rating. These are scary numbers because this just shows that voting in elections is a major lack of importance to us, and that this is not good for our nation. Secondly, I want you guys to realize how voting is a privilege and not a right. Not everyone is allowed to just walk into the voting booth, fill out a ballot, and vote for our next president. Now, not everyone, and everyone hasn't always had these rights. A lot of people have had to fight and work to get these rights. In 1919, women were just not allowed to vote, and it wasn't until 1965 that people of other races were allowed to vote. So this is something that we shouldn't take for granted because it is not something that we have always had the privilege of doing. Lastly, I want you guys to understand all the positive effects that voting can have on us. First off, the first thing is being able to freely give your opinion to those around you, because speaking about how you feel around politics is something that can be sort of a delicate manner around certain people, but this is your opportunity to speak freely. Second, according to massvote.org, a voting organization, elected officials will tend to go to the communities and places where the voting rating is much higher. So people that come to your community are going to try to make more of a pitch and a plea to try to get your votes, rather than in a community who doesn't really vote, they're not going to try to come and make a plea to get your votes and make your community any better. And lastly, it gives you the ability to help steer the country in the direction that you want it to go. Now, so if there's three things that I hope you guys were able to take out of it today, I hope you understand just how dangerous our voting percentage rating is now, why we need to vote, and why it is such a privileged opportunity. So get out there, register to vote, and go out there and vote on November 18th.